Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. I'm Steven Browne and we're chatting all things Leeds United, and I'm delighted to welcome back to the show is the Athletics Leeds United writer Nancy Froston. Nancy, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you're watching along on X, please do like and retweet us. And if you're listening later on Spotify, please do leave us a rating and review. Now, an article has dropped on The Athletic this morning confirming you're taking over full coverage of Leeds United on The Athletic, following on from Phil Hay. So congratulations on that, Nancy. You've obviously been writing about the club for a few months, but how does it feel to actually get the full gig, as it were?
Yeah, it's great. It's really an exciting time to sort of take over and step into Phil's big big shoes. But no, I'm really excited about it, and yeah, it's been nice to have like a little period of introduction and kind of get to know the quirks and all the ins and outs of the fan base and the club itself. And yeah, I'm thrilled to kind of hopefully go into a really successful promotion winning season. So let's hope.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed. And we can't not mention Phil as well, who it feels like has been part of the Leeds United fabric for such a long time, obviously covering the club for 18 years at Yorkshire Evening Post and then moving to the Athletic. I mean, what's he been like in terms of someone to kind of learn the ropes from and learn about Leeds a little bit and just generally spend some time with?
He's like such a great guy to work with, and he's really sort of supported me not just in this time with Leeds, but previously when we first started at the Athletic, and even a bit before when I used to work in Sheffield. So he's a great guy in terms of just bringing you into the fold. He's introduced me to everyone, but more than that, he's a great writer. Like some of the stuff he's put out over the years, it's really like the top of the game, top of the industry. So, if I can write half as well as that on Leeds, I'll be chuffed. And apart from all that, he gets it. Like he knows what it means to be Leeds. Like I think he put in his article that went up. You know, Leeds fans don't do people having them as their second club, but it's kind of the closest comparison that he could make, I think. And he just totally gets the like psyche of being a Leeds fan, which I'm starting to hopefully like really understand. But I think to everyone else, it just looks completely bonkers and like maybe a bit scary, like they don't make sense of it. But he just gets it, and so picking up from that, and I'll still be able to draw on his knowledge, and he'll still pop up from time to time writing about Leeds. Like he's never going to be totally done with this because he's a bit of an institution, isn't he, or a bit of a fixture now. So institution makes him sound old, but yeah, no, he's been great, and he's got a well-earned kind of breather, I think, after some pretty hard yards over the years.
Yeah,
with
absolutely. I mean,
chaos.
he's covered. Yeah, I mean, he's covered some absolutely unbelievable times at the club. It could be that you're taking over writing full time for them, and we could be back in the Premier League, and you could see potentially Europe and all this kind of thing. I mean, it'd be. I really hope that happens, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see, won't we?
Yeah. No, I've said to him, Champions League in 3 years, and that'd suit me. And he had to do League One, going out against Histon in the FA Cup, and all that. I should stop talking because it's probably like giving you all PTSD. Anyone listening, but no, look, there's every potential for this season to be like a really positive experience. Put Wembley out of the mind. Like there's so much to look forward to this season. I'm a big fan of the Championship, big fan of the EFL. I know it's something that most Leeds fans want to leave behind, but like it's a good proper division. There's chance for watching a full season of games where Leeds win more than they do anything else, hopefully. And so yeah, it's just a really good opportunity to I guess ride like a really positive wave into a new season, and I guess continue a year and a bit, no, probably just a year actually, of not going back into the relegation trauma, but a year of kind of really good growth. And the club's on a really stable footing now, which I know Phil would have liked when he first took over. I think he dealt with some of the more challenging times. So
Yeah. Are you ready for the kind of Twitter or X bombardment of people wanting for rumor updates and any news, Nance? I can see that now coming through daily. I mean, you probably get it already, to be fair, but are you kind of prepared for the scale of what's coming?
I think I'm as prepared as I can be. The sort of slowly making my way onto the patch has helped kind of give me a soft launch or a bit of a like easy introduction to things. But I know it's going to take things up another notch. But I've kind of got to know like the little phrases and the replies from fans and um, the things that they like during the match, the goal celebrations and various things. So there'll be some continuity there because I think all the Leeds writers celebrate with big goal celebrations, even if it was like Phil's sort of Leeds trademark first. So yeah, I'll it'll be mad, but I'll embrace it because it's a nice little sort of microcosm of Leeds kind of fan culture, and
Yeah.
there's lots of different places you can look for like fan culture and really understanding a fan base. But love it or loathe it, Twitter's usually still quite a good place for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. Well, moving on to kind of Leeds United news, then you've dropped a couple of brilliant articles over the last couple of weeks, Nancy, post-season. Obviously, the big news kind of straight away, it's never quiet with Leeds United, is in town, and it was Red Bull sponsoring the shirt, minority investment, obviously split the fan base, to say the least, in terms of people who thought it was good, people thinking it's bad for the long term. What does this mean later on down the line? Obviously, in your article, which I'd recommend anyone get online and have a read of that on the Athletic. Outlining Red Bull. It's been a successful staple in sport. F1. I mean, you think of Leipzig as well. I was just looking at some of the transfers Leipzig have done, and some of the players have had over the last few years is phenomenal. And it's that thing. Do we need to be worried, Nancy, about what's happening later down the line, or do we just kind of take it for what it is at the moment?
I think like the main thing I would say is like Leeds have communicated it really well. So I think you can take it for what it is at the moment in terms of, they've been quite clear. They're not getting a seat on the board. Nothing's changing in terms of the identity of the club, and that's obviously massively important. Like I know for a fact that any fan base in this country, but particularly Leeds, would not probably tolerate some of the changes that Red Bull have been able to make at other clubs in other countries, just because it's just so like part of an institution to have your name, your colours, your crest, your stadium name, kind of be all set in stone. But it's quite interesting because Red Bull are sort of moving into a bit of a new era now. So I think Leeds actually sort of represents a bit of a new step in kind of what the company are looking to do. So they're kind of one of their founders, Dietrich Mateschitz, he passed away, I think it was 2 years ago. And there were a few things in terms of the F1 team that have come as a result of that, a few changes. But in a way, that's also been reflected in this investment with Leeds, because normally when I spoke to people about Red Bull for the article, when Red Bull do something, they really go all at it, and they will fully invest. Everything changes, and from that point on, it's this slick, well-oiled machine, and it's very successful. It's not always popular, but it is very successful, and you kind of can't argue with that at pretty much everything they do. But this is something different because it's a minority shareholding, and normally they do things as a majority or total control. So I can see why fans are concerned. I can see why the trust have like clearly set out their stall, and that's a good thing to do because there's never any guarantees in football. Even if the 49ers are being really good and upfront about what this means now, obviously if they ever sold or whatever, like it doesn't guarantee anything. So it's not wrong for Leeds fans to be concerned, and I think history has shown kind of maybe the way that Red Bull do things, and so that's why English fans in particular are quite twitchy about this. But yeah, I think at face value, it's a really good investment. It's a really good opportunity. They have some really like impressive athlete training facilities and sort of pools of knowledge that Leeds can probably tap into across different sports. So, you know, it presents like quite an interesting challenge. And I know there've been sort of semi bad experiences between Leeds and people who've come from Red Bull clubs in the past, but on the whole, you know, they're a well-oiled machine, and it should be an asset really to the club.
Yeah, indeed, great stuff. Something out of the Leeds sphere, but still kind of deeply connected to the club. I hold my hands up. I am a fully fledged Bielsa widow, and you did an article recently about kind of what's going on with him in Uruguay. Obviously, he took over at Uruguay, was it about 18 months or something ago, and it's his first job post Leeds, and they've had some incredible results, beating Argentina and Brazil away from home. He's got Darwin Núñez finishing like prime Alan Shearer. It's phenomenal, really. And how does this man do this? At every place that he goes, he just seems to create something so special, and he's doing it again for Uruguay.
Honestly, it's insane watching that clip, and you can see straight away why it did the rounds as quickly as that with the fourth goal for Uruguay against Mexico. And it's like copy and paste from some of the Leeds goals. And I think there was a Chile goal when he was their national team manager as well, and it's so similar again. And the way that he's like got some really good results against Argentina, Brazil, that one against Mexico even. It's the way that he obviously is able to get his ideas across so quickly, probably quicker maybe than he even did with Leeds, because it's different pace, isn't it, international football management. But yeah, he's a special character, and it's so easy to see kind of why he's still so loved at Ellen Road, because that was a magical spell. And you know, I was someone who was watching that from afar. I wasn't involved in covering Leeds in any sense at the time, but you were looking at it going, that looks like an absolutely brilliant ride. He's this obviously like huge character, in not like a traditional like big character way, but just like his presence and what he brings, and you know, his little quirks and mannerisms, which probably like mirror quite nicely onto, I think, some of the things about the Leeds fan base that are like little things that maybe look a bit odd to other people, or you know, to the outside world, but actually like it makes perfect sense.
Well.
It put, you know, it's part of like that identity of who they are. So yeah, it's remarkable really, and it wouldn't be surprised me if he goes on and does really well here at the Copa America, because you know, it's just to have got those results so quickly. And you mentioned Núñez as well, like, you know, hasn't really looked a world beater at Liverpool necessarily, or like for the amount they paid anyway. Yeah, I think lots of Leeds fans are Uruguay fans now, especially for the Copa coming up. So
yeah, I in the article you mentioned about kind of his research as well, and the pool of players that he's kind of looking for, and he is just another level, isn't he, of research, and you know, it's phenomenal, isn't it? I mean, before he took the Leeds job, he'd watched every championship game of every club or something. You know, you're like, how does this man find this much time in the day to do it? But I mean, it works, doesn't it? And you know, if he finds the kind of right setting for you know what, you know, it's called El Loco, you know, for a reason. You know, if he finds that right environment, it thrives.
yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, you know, there's no such thing as being over prepared, and he's got it all. But yeah, there was some sort of talk of him basically like going around pitches, sometimes like semi-professional or amateur level in Uruguay, and scouting people. And I know there was a rumor that he was calling up someone from like quite the lower leagues, but it turned out to be a little bit sort of not quite accurate. But the point remains, it's totally the sort of thing you can see him doing. And so it all sort of feeds into the myth of Bielsa, doesn't it? It's quite a nice thing. And look, he seems to be enjoying himself, and that's kind of, I feel like with with Leeds fans like looking on, it's a bit like, I don't know. I don't even know if it's like an ex moving on and you're happy for them or something, if that's the best way to describe it, or if that's even possible. Like a yearning for him still. But
I don't think there's ever been as much goodwill for someone associated with Leeds who's no longer there anymore. I mean, apart from, you know, probably players that have retired and like Eddie Gray and people like that. But Bielsa, I mean, we're just obsessed. We really are obsessed. It's funny actually. I mean, a little kind of interesting side note is you've got Jesse Marsh, who's now in charge of Canada, who are in the Copa America, I believe, as well, Canada. So there's this potential of Canada versus Uruguay, Bielsa versus Marsh. It's just one of those interesting little narratives that football likes to throw up every now and again, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't think it would take much guessing to see where most Leeds fans might fall in, who they'd support there. But yeah, someone told me the other day that I don't think they can meet until the semi-final or the final, which obviously would be a bit of extra skin in the game as well. But I think if Canada got to that stage, I mean, that'd be a pretty good tournament for them. So he's got a job on his hands. But I'd like to see it, to be fair, because I suppose it's that kind of old and new, the really rose tinted glasses experience, and then the sort of I don't know, the bruising experience of a manager that maybe didn't click quite so well at a club. But it'd be an interesting matchup, that, actually.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, I'd love to see it happen. Getting back to Leeds then, and obviously it's going to be a busy summer. Probably the big news from this week, start of this week, was Brendan Aronson coming back to the club, and it seems like he's going to actually stay for next season. He's had a chat with Daniel Farke, and it looks positive. Are you a little surprised by that, or is this kind of showing you the ambition almost of Leeds, the fact that, look, this is a guy who was playing Champions League football and it didn't kind of work out in his first spell, but actually wants to give it a go with Leeds and push on for promotion?
Yeah, I think it probably is quite sort of informative on a few fronts. I think it shows you maybe the sort of man management and pulling power of Daniel Farke. I don't exactly know the timeline of last season in terms of when Aronson went out and Farke came in, and what crossover there'd have been there or what conversations. But obviously, coming in for Aronson coming into this team now, he's had the potential to go back out on loan. That was still there. There was interest from Germany, and he's turned it down. So another sort of takeaway from this is obviously that he's really willing to apply himself. He really wants, to make a good go of it and sort of justify that big price tag and that big move and maybe all the things that he was tipped to do when he came, and obviously it didn't quite work out. So I think that's encouraging from a Leeds perspective. And in the Championship, any adjustment that maybe he might have struggled with to the Premier League, you'd hope that would be a little bit easier. But he's a player kind of 12 months on from when anyone at Leeds, in terms of fans, would have last really properly seen him. So he is a more complete player now. So you'd think, and I think he's sort of got a bit more physically strong from what I've heard talking to people the past few days. So that could sort of stand him in good stead. But on the whole, I think really it's quite a good marker for especially the players, other players that maybe are coming back from loan spells. Some of them, obviously, you probably look at them and think, okay, maybe their time at Leeds is done. But it does show you that there's a way back for some players who have either cost a lot of money or they've not quite bedded in, or they chose to go out on loan when relegation happened because they didn't want to stick around for a championship season. It's encouraging of kind of what Farke's building, and Aronson's not coming in to necessarily be straight into the starting team. Like you'd imagine he's competing for that number 10 role, which is Jorginho Ruta's role at the moment, and you'd still think would be firmly his role unless he moves on this summer. So I know Aronson can play elsewhere, but that's there's serious competition in the places that he's deciding to come in. So you'd hope he's coming in with that extra confidence and sort of willing to prove people wrong, and getting it done early means that even his biggest sort of critics in the fan base have enough time to maybe get their heads around the fact that he's back, he's one of our players, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt, or he's got that chance to impress early. So it's good to see it tied up early. Gives him some security, gives him some confidence to get going.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed. And it's funny actually because you mentioned there about the timeline. Farker wasn't in when Aronson had already left. I think he was out the door pretty
Yeah.
quickly. And it would have been interesting if he'd have had a conversation 12 months ago with Farker, if anything could have been different at that time. Moving on, then looking at the retained list, obviously came out as well, and got a situation with Cooper and Shackleton who have been offered new deals. Is there any kind of movement on that at the moment? Are we kind of know it? Because I don't think either one is done at the moment, are they? And there's maybe a suggestion that they're probably going to be bit part players really in the squad, and it's a case of do they want that at their age really?
Yeah. I think they're in talks. I don't know if they've got as far as kind of having something on the table just yet, but yeah, they're kind of having talks, and that's fair enough because I suppose you probably get to a certain point in your career as a player, and you might be happy with a bit part role because the it's kind of for the security or the affection or relationship you have with the club. That's enough. But some people really want that regular playing time till late in their careers, and you could see that would be absolutely the case for both players, to be fair. But I mean, I think everyone would probably like to see them both stick around, wouldn't they? Especially with everything that Liam Cooper's done at the club. I
I
was
think he
talking about
needs
this.
next year for his testimonial as well. I think he needs
Yeah,
next year's 10 years, and then he'd get his testimonial. I think with Jamie
yeah,
Shackleton, it might be slight. It's a strange. I think he's a great squad player for this level. When you're in the Championship, I just wonder for him himself if he's happy with that at being 24 and kind of
yeah.
not playing much. But like you say, he's got that connection to Leeds as well, hasn't he? So maybe it's okay for him.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if for some reason it didn't happen and he decided to leave, then I wonder if you're having a conversation about sort of options at right back or depth there, because obviously Luke Ayling's gone, and again you've got a few people coming back off loan or a few people that are versatile or whatever. But it'll be interesting to see with sales and stuff like where things start to look a bit lighter in terms of squad depth. Um, and yeah, kind of where Leeds might be looking this summer because it's still early days. But yeah, there's plenty of work to be done, I think.
Yeah, it's a strange one because obviously with PNS, FFP, or whichever one it's called, I
All the
forget
letters.
these days. Yeah, I mean it's kind of difficult, isn't it? Because you can't maybe pull the trigger you want to pull, maybe like a Joe Rodon. Maybe I know he's signed they've triggered an extension on his contract, but maybe there's a figure there you could pay. But then you're thinking, well, can you commit that much to a Joe Rodon? And then if you don't maybe make enough player sales, it's a little bit up in the air like that, I guess. And we don't, from our side, know any concrete figures, really, I guess, of what Leeds can do.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, Leeds will know what they can do, and I think we've seen maybe with some of the issues that Leicester and a few other clubs have faced, like they're not about. I wouldn't say they're about to get silly with this, but yeah, I think realistically, like they know they need to make a sale, maybe a big sale or like a couple of small sales. I think that's fair to say, and so in that respect. Sadly, probably like one of the better players from last season could be the sort of person that makes way for that. But Leeds are quite a good position in terms of having so many saleable assets. Like if you look at you got like Nonto, Gray, who I reckon is probably the one that people would least like to see go,
Yeah,
but actually
yeah,
he's probably the best PSR value because he'd go down as like a £0 expenditure, and so the whole thing would be profit. But Ruta and Somerville, that's just off the top of my head, but there's more, and they're all kind of appealing prospects. So, but yeah, it's kind of tricky. I know that particularly with Rodon, given how successful last season was for him, but also Connor Roberts, they are players that Leeds would probably be interested in bringing back. Robert's situation is probably a bit in flux because Burnley don't have a manager appointed yet, and so the amount of football he's going to be kind of promised will depend on that. But But as for Rodon, because he played so well, there is, I think, a bit of sort of Premier League interest there, and Spurs have triggered that extra year because he would have been out of contract, and so they've kind of smart enough to protect themselves and give themselves that chance to either do a permanent or a loan to permanent, or by the sounds of it, Ange Postecoglou did have a look at him, and that could, I suppose they might not rule out kind of a return to Spurs first team, but yeah, I suppose the difficulty for Leeds is, and this is just reflective of the gap between the Championship and the Premier League these days. As soon as the Premier League comes into that conversation about permanently signing Joe Rodon, like, you're probably already talking money that, because of the restrictions, the financial restrictions, might put him beyond Leeds reach, which is obviously frustrating because that's the perils of being a loan club. You've given him the platform to shine, and obviously he helped the team as well. It's not just not just one-sided transaction, but there is kind of that downside of you might have strengthened another club's asset to a point where you can't afford them yourself. So
yeah, exactly like Ben White again.
Yes.
A couple of other players then, just to mention Gruev. Obviously, that was kind of heating up, links to Dortmund and whatnot. It seems to have died down a little bit at the moment, or is it things being kind of worked away in the background, do we think?
I haven't heard loads, but it's kind of that situation of I think as the season ran so long for Leeds, they're at a bit of a sort of, well, not a disadvantage, because they have planned like a plan A and a plan B for the Premier League or the Championship, but they're having to contend with pivoting from one plan to another based on the outcome of the playoff final, and then I suppose waiting for the chips to fall into place in terms of the interest they get, what they think is going to be the best deal for sort of freeing up some of that P&S budget. So yeah, again, like, this is the thing, isn't it? So many saleable assets that Gruev's there. Like, some of these players, Ampadu only came in last summer, and I'm not saying he'd be on the move. I don't know any of this, but like, you'd think people would be looking at him because of how well he played and the leadership he showed and all those things, and he's young, and this is good news for Leeds, because they've got quite a lot of young players who have got a lot of experience and have played well and everything, but equally it's kind of like that's the trend now, is people want under 25 players who can handle the physicality of the Championship so that they're ready for whatever Premier League and stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. It will be interesting to see what gets very quickly squashed in terms of rumours, and how long things are allowed to run. And nobody wants stuff to get silly. I think if the ideal situation is if Gruev's to go to Borussia Dortmund, it gets done quickly so that Leeds can then go, okay, this is what we're going to spend the money on, or whatever.
Is it a little harder? Because one thing we've noticed as a fan base with the 49ers is they're watertight. Nothing seems to leak out. It's all of a sudden something done, and where did that come from? Whereas maybe previous regimes, it was, they were, I don't know, feeding Twitter rumors and all sorts, I don't know, sliding into DMs and all sorts with themselves. But I mean, it are quite a hard club to read now in terms of what they're gonna be doing.
I think like an efficient and sort of professional kind of way of doing things, if that makes sense. Not that leaking bits of information is bad, but it's a bit like with like actual club takeovers, where if you're hearing too much, normally it's a bit of a red flag. So not many transfers though are really done completely on the quiet anymore. I feel like the last one was probably like Danny Ings to West Ham, but they announced that and everyone was like, wait, where did this come from? Literally nowhere. But so there's always like a little bit of something that sneaks out in one way or another, but it's kind of not a bad thing, like, to not have all that noise, because suddenly you'll find it starts adding zeros onto the end of a press of a player, or they're having various people are having other conversations at the same time and all those things. And so okay, it might make for less drama or less excitement on news pages and Instagram or Twitter or whatever. But I suppose in a way there are advantages to doing business in that way, and normally probably means getting a better deal for a player you actually want rather than getting sucked into any hysteria.
Yeah, exactly. Just before we wrap up then, Nancy, anything else on the kind of transfer front that we should be keeping an eye
on? Incomings, like I say, it's still kind of, I think, just a case of waiting for potentially outgoings. I'm waiting for a few things to drop into place. Obviously, like, interest in Archie Gray is going to be one to watch all summer long. A lot of clubs in the Premier League and Europe, are interested, rate him. Probably having conversations because you would, anyone who's watched him play in the flesh, he's already got, plenty of games under his belt and plays like a player with 200 games under his belt, let alone 50 odd or whatever he got last season. So that'll be one to watch, but I don't, I'll eat my hat if he sort of is off somewhere on Friday as soon as the deadline opens, like it's not in that advanced for a position. And you've always got to take into account the emotional value of it being, the club he's growing up at and the family connection and everything there. And then after that, again, not a shocker, but Crescencio Somerville's probably, and Willie Nonto are probably the next two kind of ones where they're, getting some interest. I think it'll just depend if anyone comes in with a serious offer, I suppose. People, I like the phrase, so and so is interested in whatever. I'm interested in playing for England, but I don't think Serena Vegan's going to call me up. So it's just kind of those things where, if you can see through see the wood for the trees, eventually you kind of work out what's got serious potential or not. But it's quite quiet, and that's not always a bad thing, but it's very early days.
Enjoy it when it's a bit quiet. You were watching the Euros as well, and are you looking forward to that, Nancy?
Yeah, I'll be doing a bit of coverage for the Athletic on that, but it'll be good fun. I think that probably is also like going to have a bit of a sway in the market, actually, just in terms of if players are away and they need to get stuff done, like they can make stuff happen anytime, but like obviously some national teams, they really lock the camps down. And also if a player does particularly well and, then that, and, a Premier League team spends 50 million on them, and then that means that someone further down the pecking order is looking to go out on loan or a cheaper deal, then all of that changes for, a team like Leeds in their financial position. So, but the Euros are going to be good. I was asked to do my predictions the other day, and I had to have a serious think rather than just going off vibes alone and hoping for an England win.
How do you think England will do?
I think I was like suitably pessimistic and put quarterfinals so that I can be pleasantly surprised if they do more. And then if not, I can go, well, I knew all along this was never going to go well because it's England. So,
absolutely. I think I was very kind of confident, and then I think the couple of friendlies have just maybe dampened it a little bit. What's happened with the defence? I'm a little bit more like pessimistic now, I think, which is my usual kind of mind frame when I'm watching Leeds anyway. So nothing new there. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for joining us. Pleasure to speak to you. I hope to catch up with you again in the future. Guys, if you've been watching along, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you've been watching along on X, please do like it and retweet it as well. And if you're listening again on Spotify later, please do leave us a rating and a review. I've been Steven Browne, being joined today by Nancy Froston. Nancy, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
And we'll catch you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.